video has 5 creative maps that'll help improve your aim a ton this chapter. All I ask is that you subscribe if you find it helpful. First up is a single player map that you can just sit and grind called Raiders Aim Training Map. It has 20 different drills to train your aim, ranging from stuff like glider tracking all the way to flick shots. And we are far past the days of the static targets that just pop up and down, because now we have these scenarios where actual bots are simulating what real player movement would look like, and these types of drills help so much more because it's directly applicable to your actions in a real game. This map in specific is pretty great because it stays pretty basic, which makes it great to grind. And even if you're just a beginner that doesn't really know what they're doing but you want to get better, there's descriptions of each scenario so you know exactly what you're practicing, because you never want to overtrain one specific area, so this map lets you know what you've been working on. Again, this one is a single player grindy sort of map where you can just turn on some music and have at it for however long you want. But I will admit, after so long, that gets pretty boring. In practice, that's boring is actually terrible for improving. So this next map is one of my new favorites for practicing aim. It's my finest, and it's this 20-player realistic free-for-all map. There are so many reasons why I love to practice on this, but let's start with the fact that realistic practice is what helps you the most. Practicing on bots and targets develops a good standard, but to compare it to something kind of in the real world, it's sort of like with basketball when you're shooting practice threes from the same spot. You're just kind of figuring out your mechanics and running through the motions over and over, and you can even be really good at it, making tons of shots in a row. The issue is the moment something switches up and you have to shoot coming off of a dribble or with defenders in your face, you never practice that, and now you're missing everything. So if all you practice in Fortnite is static targets and single player drills, sure, your aim might be great in that, but you'll be completely thrown off when other players start shooting back and moving in weird patterns that you haven't seen before. And just like that, your aim turns to trash. So while maps like the first one are great for developing baseline mechanics, nothing will beat realistic practice maps like this. From the gameplay, you can obviously tell that it's not only aiming, but it's important to incorporate builds and piece control in as well, because a big part of aim is knowing the timing coming off edits to pull out your guns to get a shot off. It's all sort of a flow. Another cool thing is that this specific map uses only relevant loot to chapter 4. So like you get to pick between the 2 shotguns, and then you get designated random loot for the rest. You have a limited amount of mats to make it realistic, and most importantly, you instantly respawn, so there's no downtime between your practice reps. It's just constant action versus something like Zone Wars, where if you die early, you have to sit around and wait. And this map is actually fun practice, so it's definitely worth it to include in your arsenal of aim practice maps. The third map is a nice medium between being a grindy map and a fun one, and that's Raiders Aim Duel. This map has stood the test of time. It's over a year and a half old, but still has tons of players, and for a good reason. It has 42 different aim duel scenarios, and what an aim duel is you versus another real player that can either be your friend or someone using the matchmaking portal. You two go into a scenario that simulates some sort of situation in a real game, and you get to practice that aim. You'll get to pick how much HP you both want, what guns you have, and then go at it to see who has the better aim and wins the scenario. I will say this map is way more fun and competitive if you play it with a friend, but even just against randoms, it can still be super competitive and great practice. Like with most practice, it'll get stale after a while, but this is the single map I've seen improve players aim the most, and tons of pros have recommended it before. There's sections ranging from the glider tracking to shotgun flicks, SMG training, box fight training, and some of the classics. With 42 different scenarios, they get really specific, so it's great to directly practice areas of your aim that you've noticed are slacking. Like if you're in the comp, there's specifically a storm search scenario. If you're struggling with close range flick shots, there's specifically a 1x1 box react scenario. Basically any situation you can think of, there's a scenario for it. But you don't want to burn yourself out by only grinding these sort of practice maps, so this next one is another pretty fun one. This is the Panville box fight map, but it's headshot only with the Thunder shotgun. If you've never heard of a headshot only map, the name is pretty self-explanatory. The only way you get a kill is if you hit the player with a headshot. Body shots don't count for any damage, so you have to specifically aim for the head. The map is sort of like a Turtle Wars box that's 4 layers high and pretty wide, with 15 other players to go against. So again, it has that real player movement and decision making, so it makes for great practice that translates well into an actual game. Each of the 16 players has unlimited wood builds, so you can also work on your shots coming off of piece control and making smart edits. In this map, the only gun available is the Thunder shotgun, which is by far the best shotgun of chapter 4, so it's a great way to get practice in with it. Then the builds reset every 2 minutes, and each round is won by the player with the most elims after 10 minutes, with a total of 3 rounds. I've actually noticed a direct correlation with the amount of headshots that I hit in game if I play this map as a warm-up before I actually go play in game. It feels like it trains your brain to only take a shot if it's a quality high damage shot, and that translates super well into real game. The great part is this map doesn't feel like a grind like a couple of the others, so it can actually be really fun to practice. Not to say that these other maps are like torturous to play on or anything, they just get boring. But sometimes if you're in the mood, 2, those can also be super fun to play. Kind of like this 5th and final practice map, Raiders Mechanics Training Map V3. This is another one of those single player grindy type map, but it has a good variety of different scenarios to practice, so you can always switch it up. Like the name suggests though, this map actually practices all of your mechanics, not just the aim. So the 2 big sections for aim will be the peak training and the box fight practice. If you've been paying attention, you might have noticed that this is the 3rd map by Raider this video. If you don't know who he is, Raider464 is a YouTuber and an insane player with some of the fastest mechanics you've ever seen. He also just so happens to be a super great map maker. So when you combine all those attributes, him being a great player and a great map maker, he can create the very best practice maps because he obviously knows what to practice with him being really good at the game, and he knows exactly how to implement the drills with his knowledge of map making. Then to top it all off, he has a big audience to show off his maps and get feedback to make changes. When it comes to practice maps, Raider really is the GOAT, so we appreciate him for his work. And that's all 5. Remember to subscribe if I helped you, and I hope you tune in to another future video of mine. Thanks so much for watching.